The mountains of southern Afghanistan are the kind of place where silence feels ancient. Wind sweeps through the valleys like a memory, and the rocks themselves seem older than anything that breathes. In 2002, when the US military was still mapping unfamiliar terrain, the Kandahar region became a maze of caves, cliffs, and narrow passes that swallowed light long before they swallowed sound. To the soldiers stationed there, the land felt hostile not just because of enemy fighters, but because something about the mountains seemed alive, watchful, waiting. It was here that one of the strangest and most controversial military stories of the modern era began, a story whispered by soldiers who later vanished from public view or refused to speak again. A story about a creature that shouldn't exist. It started with a patrol of men, experienced, capable, familiar with the terrain. Their task was simple: track insurgent activity in a remote mountain corridor and report anything unusual. For the first 2 days, nothing seemed out of place. Then their communications stopped. No distress call, no request for backup. Just silence. At first, command assumed equipment failure, but when attempts to reach the patrol continued to fail, a second team was ordered to move in. These soldiers, later referred to only as Team B, reported that even from a distance, the path leading toward the patrol's last known location felt wrong. Their guide, an Afghan man who had lived his entire life in that region, warned them about the caves ahead. He said locals feared them, calling them places where the old ones sleep. No one took the warning seriously, but the man refused to go any farther. Team B continued without him. They found the first sign of trouble near a bend in the trail. A broken rifle, snapped clean in half, as if crushed by something impossibly strong. Then they found blood on the rocks. Not a pool, not a spread of streaks. Long drag marks leading toward the mouth of a cavern carved into the cliffside. The way the marks were shaped, one soldier said, reminded him of someone being pulled by the legs, heels scraping stone. Still, no bodies, no sign of the missing patrol, who stood dark, yawning entrance of the cave ahead of them. Inside, the air changed. It was cooler, almost cold, and thick with a smell none of them could identify: earthy, metallic, and strangely sweet. Their flashlights swept over crude drawings on the walls, symbols none of them recognized. Some looked like ancient script, others resembled oversized handprints. Deeper in, they discovered shredded pieces of military fabric, parts of equipment, and a radio crushed under a heavy mass. The cave widened into a chamber large enough to hold a house. That was where they found the first body, one of the missing soldiers, dead, bloodless, and broken in a way no human enemy could have managed. Before they could process the shock, a massive shape dropped from a ledge above them. The creature moved with impossible speed for something its size. Later accounts describe it as over 12 feet tall, heavily muscled, with skin the color of clay and hair that burned a deep rusty red. Its eyes, according to one soldier, were the color of molten amber, glowing, furious, intelligent. It carried a spear fashioned from some kind of wood and sharpened stone, but the weapon alone wasn't what terrified the soldiers. It was the sheer size of its hands, each large enough to wrap around a man's torso, and the force behind its movements, strong enough to split boulders. The giant roared a sound that reverberated through the chamber like thunder in a closed canyon, drove its spear straight through one of the soldiers before he could even fire a shot. Instinct took over. Team B opened fire from every direction. M4 south rattled. A saw gunner unleashed a deafening burst. The cave shook with the echo of gunfire. And yet, the giant did not fall. It staggered, enraged, pulling one soldier off his feet before hurling him into a wall with sickening speed. The team's adrenaline surged. They kept firing, chest, neck, head, until finally the creature dropped to one knee, then collapsed to the ground with a crash that shook loose dust from the ceiling. Even after it fell, they kept their weapons trained on it, waiting for any sign of movement. When they approached, they realized the giant had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, and its teeth were sharper and longer than any human's. The team radioed command immediately. They expected disbelief, confusion, maybe even suspicion. What they got instead was a calm, clipped instruction. Secure the site. Do not engage further. Back up inbound. No questions. No hesitation. As if what they described was not surprising at all. Within an hour, a cargo helicopter arrived with personnel. The soldiers had never seen before men in plain uniforms with no insignias, no names, and no explanations. They carried a massive net, reinforced with metal bands. The giant's body, weighing approximately 1,100 pounds, was loaded onto the helicopter without a word. The soldiers from Team B attempted to ask questions, but they were met with blank stares or firm commands to step back. The helicopter lifted off, carrying the giant into classified obscurity. When Team B was finally returned to base, they were separated, debriefed individually, and made to sign documents that restricted them from ever speaking publicly about the mission. They were told the patrol had been killed by insurgents, and that anything they thought they saw in the cave was a result of battlefield stress, confusion, and adrenaline. Their equipment was replaced. Their original weapons were taken away. Some were reassigned. Some left the military entirely. A few years later, would anonymously share fragments of the story, but only fragments. Some refused to talk about it at all. The military, when asked about the incident years later, denied everything. They called the tale an internet hoax, a fabricated myth born from online conspiracy communities. And yet, Afghan villagers had been telling stories for generations about red-haired giants living in the mountains, attacking travelers, stealing livestock, and guarding ancient caves. Locals called them devs, beings mentioned in old folklore, believed to be remnants of a forgotten age. Even older texts from the Middle East and beyond speak of Nephilim, mighty giants, red-haired and powerful, described as the offspring of gods and humans. These similarities make the official denial feel thin, almost rehearsed. Skeptics argue that the stress of combat creates hallucinations, exaggerations, and distorted memories. But skeptics cannot explain how multiple soldiers who never met, never served together afterward, and had no contact describe the same creature in remarkable detail. They cannot explain the missing patrol, the mysterious recovery team, or why any mention of unusually large skeletal remains found in Afghanistan never appears in public scientific records. And they certainly cannot explain why the military acted so quickly and decisively, without surprise, as though such encounters were not new. Some believe the giant of Kandahar was simply a massive, isolated human and evolutionary anomaly, shaped by generations of genetic drift. Others insist it was an undiscovered species, a relic of a prehistoric line that survived in remote caves. And then there are those who believe the military knew exactly what it was dealing with. Something ancient, something dangerous, something that defied modern explanation. According to them, the giant wasn't a discovery, it was a rediscovery. Proof of legends older than civilization itself. To this day, the cave remains unmarked on official maps. The soldiers involved seldom speak. The military denies everything. But the story refuses to die. It spreads from one whispered conversation to another, from forums to documentaries, from veterans to curious civilians. Not because people want to believe in giants, but because the world is still filled with places untouched, unexplored, and unsolved. Places where ancient things can hide. So was the giant of Kandahar real? A myth? A military cover-up? Until someone comes forward with undeniable proof, or until another creature emerges. From the forgotten corners of the earth, the truth sits in a strange place between legend and classified reality. But one thing is certain. The mountains of Afghanistan hold secrets far older and far larger than anyone is prepared to admit.